The Maple Leafs move on from Sheldon Keefe as the Canucks come back to stun the Oilers. Hey everyone, welcome into Off the Post. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Sports columnist Steve Simmons, Canucks reporter for the Vancouver Sun and the Province Patrick Johnston, and Postmedia hockey columnist Bruce Garrioch. And guys, we'll get to a wild night on the ice in a moment, but the breaking news from today, the Maple Leafs relieving Sheldon Keefe of his head coaching duties after 5 seasons and just one playoff series victory during that span. Steve, I don't think many people around the league are surprised about the news today, but when you look at Sheldon Keefe's time in Toronto, how do you think he'll be remembered?
I think he'll be remembered as a very good regular season coach who had almost no success in the playoffs, which is why he's out of work today. He has one of the best winning percentages in NHL history as a regular season coach, and unfortunately, that never translated to anything meaningful in playoff time, April and May, and so that's why he's out of work. I hope he's not the only one out of work. If he's the only one out of work, then Maple Leaf people have missed the point in what they're doing or trying to do with their organization.
When you say that, Steve, are you pointing to Brendan Shanahan, or are you?
I just pointing to the operation of everything. It's not just Brendan Shanahan. I can't sit here today and say Sheldon Keefe is the reason the Maple Leafs didn't do this for the last 5 years. I think this is one of those collective failures. The players failed. The coach failed. The management team failed. And I'm not including Kyle Dubas and Lou Lamoriello and all the people that came before Brad Treliving. And, of course, Brendan Shanahan's been there for 10 years. So this is collective failure come playoff time. If you pin this on one person, you're missing the point.
Yeah, I mean, look, I believe that Sheldon Keefe is part of the problem, but he's not the problem. Look, I don't think what happened to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs is a coaching issue. I think there are bigger issues. I'm led to believe that Keith Pelley, taking over his new role, is afraid to fire Brendan Shanahan at this point because he doesn't want to put all the heat on himself. Okay, that's fine. Give it a year, and then I guess you can fire Shanahan and Treliving if it doesn't turn around. But right now, Keefe is the scapegoat, Patrick, but I do agree with Steve that he's not the only one who should go.
I found myself thinking a lot about, I think, Steve's comment the last time we were here talking about how Sheldon Keefe had the best 3 games he'd ever coached. And that's coming on the heels of this, which, of course, tells you about the big story, which is that a lot of people haven't been able to deliver. It's not just Keefe. He, as we all know, has done an outstanding job in the regular season. I mean, obviously, that's something that we're familiar with here in Vancouver. Bruce Bruto, maybe the last games he coached in the NHL were here. There's a guy who had a long career, couldn't quite ever get it done in the playoffs. It takes more than just the coach in the end. The coach's abilities are, of course, important, but I absolutely agree. I mean, the overall theme here on the Leafs, Brendan Shanahan was brought in 10 years ago to change the culture, to get, sort of coherence and direction. They did get some way ahead of where they were, but in the end, they're still sitting in the same place they've always been, which is unable to get it done in the playoffs.
I don't know how to define great coaching, but you know it when you see it. And I was lucky to start my hockey writing career doing a lot of chronicling of the New York Islanders with Al Arbor. And I was up close for 4 of their Stanley Cup performances. They won 3, lost 1. And I got to know him quite well, understood what it was that a great coach does. And then I got to know Bob Johnson in Calgary. And he, to this day, is one of the 3 or 4 best NHL coaches I've ever seen. What he did with that roster, what he did with players, how he made his team better day after day after day, year after year. It's just incredible to watch up close. But when it's not happening, you also see that. And that's what I saw in Toronto. I didn't see the team progressing. I didn't see players, maybe other than Austin Matthews and William Nylander, progressing. And so the extreme talents progressed. The rest of the team didn't necessarily progress. So the time was right to make a move. But, as I said, and as we all kind of agreed, this can't be the only move.
Well, and I guess the real question is, you can't just look back. You have to look ahead. I believe, as watching Ottawa just hire Travis Green, I do believe that Craig Berube has just been waiting for today to happen. And I would, my personal feeling, I'd be shocked if Craig Berube's not the next head coach of the of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Steve.
And I feel like smashing my head against the wall when I hear that.
Yeah.
Like, tell me why.
He won a Stanley Cup. He's got the best. The Leafs get this in their head that they have the guy with the best pedigree out there.
He won a fluke Stanley Cup. No, seriously, realistically, it was the most unusual fluke Stanley Cup ever. There's nothing. I've never seen anything about Craig Berube that impresses me.
I think it's a case of, in the end, a coach can only do so much. It's about everything else, right? A coach can hurt your team more than he can help. I think Berube would be an interesting hire, but in the end, it's just shuffling deck chairs. The overall picture is that you need more than just a new coach. I think you need a new culture in that room. You need a new culture from the top. Obviously, there are things going on behind the scenes. There are always things going on behind the scenes with the Toronto Maple Leafs that I'm sure will reveal themselves in all this. But overall, this is a team that has kind of been stuck in neutral for a few years. I'm not sure changing the coach is going to change all that much.
Yeah, it definitely does seem like the first of many moves for the Maple Leafs this offseason. Well, if there's one coach that Vancouver Canucks fans are very happy to have right now, it is Rick Tocchet, Patrick. And what an incredible game that was on Wednesday night. The Canucks just keep finding a way to have these types of comebacks so far in these playoffs. Patrick, what went right for them and what went wrong for the Oilers in game number one?
Well, obviously, the Oilers had a lot go right for them off the top, getting a couple goals in. I think what was realistically a pretty shaky performance from Canucks goalie Artur Silov's, biggest stage he ever faced. He'd never faced the Oilers. He'd never faced Conor McDavid. He'd never faced Leon Draisaitl. But the interesting thing, and you dig into all this, was that it's the first game in Conor McDavid's playoff career he didn't have a shot on goal, right? Like the Canucks actually were playing pretty well, even when they were trailing. And they stuck with it. And that's kind of been the story of this season. And Rick Tocchet really has instilled some belief. You want to talk about a coach that's going to help your players? Here's a guy who's done that. He's instilled belief in them and in what they're trying to do to sort of be, listen, you keep pressing. And they got that goal late in the second period, obviously gave them some belief. In that third period, they just were all in. And we've seen that so often this year here in Vancouver, a team that really takes it up a notch when they're chasing the game. It's obviously hard to score in the NHL, but even going into this game, the Canucks, you could tell, felt that they were a really strong matchup for the way the Oilers defend. I think I mentioned this the other day. Obviously, the Predators were very aggressive, double teaming whenever they could. The Oilers are much more open. They want to play a much more looser game. And the Canucks have exploited that. They've now won 5 times against Edmonton this season, and it's no mistake, I don't think, any of those wins, really.
If you want to get a picture of what a Stanley Cup playoff game looks like with minor league goaltending, that's what you got last night.
Yeah.
I don't, there are no Edmonton Oilers in the AHL that Shelov's has faced. And he looked like a deer in the headlights. He let in some horrible goals. And down at the other end, Stuart Skinner wasn't a whole lot better if he was better at all. So it looked like last shot. This is ball hockey on the road. Last shot wins. Give the Canucks all the credit in the world for sticking with it and coming back and doing what they did. Not sure either of those teams can win a playoff series with that kind of goaltending. And at the same time, the Oilers just zero structure, zero accountability, didn't look like a playoff team in any way at all last night. They played loose and sloppy and poor. And, if that's who the Oilers are going to be, well, we can write them off for another year as well.
Well, it's interesting. I saw Stuart Skinner saying that, the Oilers beat themselves, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think for the final 30 minutes of that game, the Vancouver Canucks were just a better team. And you also have the whole Leon Draisaitl leaving the game for 8 or 10 minutes with what they called cramping. I don't know about that. If the Oilers are down 2-0, then, they're in major trouble. But right now, okay, it's a one-off, but you also have to think that the Oilers with a 5-0 or with the Canucks with a 5-0 record against the Oilers this season are firmly planted in the Oilers' kitchen.
There can't have been many games in Conor McDavid's career where he's played 24 minutes and had no shots on goal.
It's amazing.
Absolutely remarkable.
Not even. It doesn't even seem realistic.
And not only never gotten shots on goal, you really didn't see him impacting the game. like doing the Conor McDavid crazy stuff, doing these speed past guys that can't take him. Like, I don't know if he was trying too hard or pressing or whatever it was, but that's not the Conor McDavid I saw in the first round of the playoffs. And that's not the guy, who led the NHL in scoring in the second half of the season. And so, I suspect that's a one-off, as tends to be with him. You're allowed one bad game every once in a while. But, I'm more concerned about the other 19 guys on the Oilers and how a team that really played pretty structured hockey in the first round against the Kings just seemed to lose their minds last night.
Yeah, if there's one thing we know, McDavid's going to use this as motivation. He will not do this again. The biggest thing that was impressive to me was the way the Canucks were able to sort of bide their time in their own end, obviously not getting the goaltending they needed, but limiting the chances in tight and taking that space away. And it was something that Chris Knobloch mentioned yesterday in his pregame availability. He talked about how, essentially that they were worried about how the Canucks have been doing shrinking back in towards the net and taking that space there, taking shooting lanes away, making it difficult. And they did a great job of that last night, I thought.
All right, finally, it's still early, of course, in the playoffs, but it's hard not to think about who might be the clubhouse leader right now for the Conn Smythe Award. You've got Connor McDavid leading the playoffs in scoring despite that game last night. You've got Igor Shesterkin making millions of saves for the New York Rangers. Bruce, is there one guy, do you think, that has been the most impressive so far in these playoffs?
Yeah, I was thinking about this morning. I think it's Shesterkin. I mean, 6-0, 929 save percentage, the best goaltender in the playoffs. To me, at this time of year, it's all about goaltending. You either have it or you don't. And in my eyes, Steve, it's Shesterkin.
Well, I thought before last night, I would have had Jeremy Swayman right there because he has been exceptional.
Me too.
I don't suspect he's going a whole lot far enough that he'll be in Conn Smythe conversation, a month from now. But boy, has he been good up to last night where they finally got to him. But you're right about Shesterkin. The best player I've seen so far in the playoffs, Cale Makar. Cale Makar is just controlling. As good as McKinnon has been in Colorado, Makar's been better. He is just controlling the puck when he's on the ice. And you watch, no disrespect to Hughes in Vancouver or Yossi in Nashville, or the guys who were in the Norris Trophy conversation. But when Makar raises his game, it's like, oh my. And that's what he's done for me in the first two rounds so far.
I mean, you look across the board how strong that Colorado team is, and I think that's going to be an amazing series. You look at what Makar brings to the table and the guys he gets to play with. I mean, Ranton and McKinnon. Heck, you're talking about Valeri Nichushkin with 8 goals in 6 games. Like, there's a lot of really interesting guys in there. I'm going to go a little bit off the board. I've been really impressed in Dallas with Wyatt Johnston, not just because he has a great last name, but just as such a fantastic young player. He was, my colleague Steve Ewan here in Vancouver did a roundup of who's your kind of dark horse candidates for your hockey pool. And I said Johnston. And, you turn on a Dallas game and every night you hear that kid's name. He's such a fun little player and really enjoying the way he plays.
It's funny because I think it was last Sunday I had it in my Sunday column that he should be on Team Canada for that upcoming tournament next year and possibly for the Olympic team in 2026. That's how much I like the guy.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal so far. A lot of great selections. Let us know who you think in the comment section below. For Steve Simmons, Patrick Johnston, and Bruce Garrioch, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.